Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. On the Sabbath, Jesus went to dine at the home of one of the leading Pharisees, and the people there were observing him carefully. He told a parable to those who had been invited, noticing how they were choosing the places of honor at the table. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not recline at the table in the place of honor. A more distinguished guest than you have been invited, and the host who invited both will approach you and say, "Give your place to this man." And then you would proceed with embarrassment to take the lowest place. Rather, when you are invited, go and take the lowest place, so that when the host comes to you, he may say, "My friend, move up to a higher position." Then you will enjoy the esteem of your companions at the table. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. Then he said to the host who had invited him, "When you hold a lunch or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or your wealthy neighbors, in case they might invite you back and you have your repayment. Rather, when you hold a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Blessed indeed will you be because of their inability to repay you, for you have been repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." The Gospel of the Lord. I said last night, as I walk between these pillars, I feel like some sort of a television minister, a television evangelist with these great things at back of me. Today, I want to talk about this thing called humility. And it's an easy word that we hear all the time, but it's also a little bit uncomfortable when you pause to think about it. You know, a lot of the church fathers, Origen and a couple of them, talked about humility as the greatest of the virtues, the most important one, because it shaped everything else. And when you think about the word humility, part of the root stems from the same root as human. And really, when we talk about humility in a spiritual sense, we're talking about a relationship. We're talking about the proper arrangement of relationships between man and God. Now, St. Thomas, in one of his writings, put it perfectly. He said, "God is God, and you are not. God is God, and you are not." The reason I repeat that is because I believe a lot of people in this world today don't believe that. They've never heard that. God is God and I am not? But whoa, I'm pretty important. Yes, you're pretty important, you're pretty special, but you're not God. That's news to too many people in this world today. And what we have to do is align ourselves in some fashion so that relationship, that fact, guides us. Unfortunately, for all of us really, that's a real challenge, because our basic human nature includes this thing called ego. Some people have big egos, some people have small egos, but everybody's got an ego. And that is like a monkey on our back that just doesn't let go. And you only think about this when you pause momentarily to ignore the rest of the world. Your ego drives you in ways that your core being as a human understands you shouldn't go. Your ego puts you first in everything. When you walk into a party, when you walk into a wedding, as the scripture talks about today, you immediately canvass the room, unconsciously maybe, but you try to identify who's there, who you're going to have to talk to, who you're going to have to sit with, what table you're going to be at. All those things come rushing into you. Each one of us in every one of our relationships is driven in some ways by ego. Now compare, for example, a conversation you're having with your best friend. You don't think about much, you just sit over coffee and have a conversation. But pretend you are sitting at that same table with that same coffee with someone else, not your best friend. And in the back of your mind, there are things always going. Am I saying the right word? Am I sitting up straight? Does he like me? Am I dressed properly? Should I have worn this? Should I have worn that? That kind of conversation takes place all the time. And the voices in your head quietly say these. When you're pushing your shopping cart down the aisle in a grocery store and you meet your neighbor, that kind of conversation happens. And that's an ego-driven thing. And then we take that to the extreme. Ultimately, we all do. We build fortresses around our ego. We protect ourselves. We don't let people see the real us. We project this image of what we would like people to know about us. And then finally, we build monuments to ourselves. Our ego becomes something that we show off. Oh, I'm chairman of that. Oh, look at my house. Look at my car. Look at my title. Look at my bank book. These are ego-driven statements. I, me. That's what my mother used to say to me all the time. I don't know why, but she did. It's all about I. Think about how many times in the course of your day you say I. I am, I want, I need, I demand. That set of sentences is part of our everyday lives in severe and subtle ways. Think about it then in terms of the scriptures and our spiritual life. What if we refuse to play that game? What if we decide that no, we are not going to build fortresses around ourselves. We are not going to build monuments around ourselves. We are not going to put up veneers. We are going to be ourselves. We are going to have a relationship with the Lord that is appreciative of everything that He has given us and grateful to all around us, and we interact with them in a spirit of generosity and humility. Well, what happens is you're freeing yourself up. You get that monkey off your back. There is nothing pushing you to think about all these extraneous issues. The baggage that you carry with you to all these interchanges is gone. So therefore, you're free. You're happy. You're blessed. Blessed are the humble. Happy are the humble. Humility on our part restores the proper relationship between us and God. There's a sentence in Thomas's work that's a long kind of sentence, but it's ex nihilo is the phrase. And what it says is, we came from nothing. Everything that we have has been given to us in some way by our God. And therefore, our relationship with God is one of gratitude. And if we remember that we came from nothing, we're going to return to nothing. We have nothing to protect. We have nothing to brag about. We have nothing to show off. We are creatures of God, whose God has been generous to us and has shown us a great deal of love. If we practice that type of humility, we restore the proper order and free ourselves to be happy. Free ourselves to interchange with people as we really are. And that's got to be a joyous and happy relationship with more and more people. That's what we're being called to in today's scriptures. And as we go through this week, maybe we can focus a little bit less on the I and more on God.